Hey, good morning. This is Casey Blackbird. I'm here at my home in Hutchinson, Minnesota, where I was born and raised, and it's only about 45 minutes or so from Crown. Many of you probably know that today's a significant day on the church calendar. It's Good Friday, which is a moment for Christians to stop and reflect on the work of Christ on the cross, and how we purchase our redemption there and prepare ourselves for Easter, for Resurrection Sunday. Good Friday is usually a bit more somber. It's a moment for us to reflect on our sin and Christ's death for that. And so my hope today is just provide a moment of meditation, reflection on that. If you want to open up your Bibles to Isaiah 52:13, we're going to read through the entire passage called the Suffering Servant. So 52:13 in the book of Isaiah. Let me read. Behold, my servant shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up, and shall be exalted. As many were astonished at you, his appearance was so marred beyond human resemblance, and his form beyond that of the children of mankind. So shall he sprinkle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him, for that which has not been told of them they see, and that which they have not heard they understand. Who has believed what he has heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we looked at him as stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. And we all, like sheep, have gone astray. We've turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for this generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people? And they made his grave with the wicked, and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days, and the will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquity. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death, and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many, and makes intercession for the transgressors. So this message came at a really unique time. This is after David, then Solomon, then there's this split following Solomon of Judah and Israel. This comes after that, and Israel has fallen to the Assyrians. And so Isaiah is offering up this message from God to the people of Judah in the midst of their not knowing what's going to happen. The world is basically at war around them, and things are looking really bleak. Because if they aren't taken by Assyria, then later on Babylon will rise up. Israel's already been destroyed. And so they're looking at their situation going, we could lose everything. We could be taken off as slaves. We could be killed. We could lose our homes. We could be taken to this foreign land with barbarians. And it's just not looking good for them. When Isaiah delivers this message, though, he kind of flips the script. He looks at the situation and he says, okay, right now you're worried about the world. You're worried about what's happening to yourself, what's going to happen around you, what's going to happen to your house. And he says, stop worrying about that, because something much more important needs to be covered. What is going to happen when you stand before God? What's happening in your relationship with God? Isaiah points out that all of humanity has sinned. It's clear in this passage that we need someone to cover us, and Isaiah says that the Lord is going to provide a servant who will eventually come and take the sin of God's people and the punishment that they deserve onto himself. And even though they would hate this servant, ignore him, and abuse him, this servant would come and put his righteousness on them so that God's will might be fulfilled to reconcile his people back to him. So in the midst of a bleak season, the people of God are given something to look forward to and place their hope in. And that prophecy was fulfilled. You can look forward from that point, look forward to Good Friday, when Jesus went and was put on a cross, crucified, and died. He was the suffering servant. He was the one who, though the world he created didn't know him and rejected him, he took on his shoulders the wickedness of the people. He did this willingly, and he did it intentionally. It was according to the plan of God. God laid out from the beginning of all creation that he would redeem for himself a people. So that he could look and say, they are my people and I am their God. And in Jesus' work on the cross, that comes true. No longer is sin able to divide us from God, but rather Jesus places his righteousness on us and takes our sin on himself so that it's covered. Look at verse 11. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. So though he went through immense physical and spiritual suffering according to the wrath of God that we deserve, remember, this is the wrath of God on sin. Paul says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. He points out that all sin deserves death. And Jesus took all of that for us. It's this great exchange where his righteousness is placed on our shoulders and our sin is given to him and covered in him. It's this great exchange that paves the way for you and I to be saved. We can receive that great exchange. We can have his righteousness put on our shoulders as he takes and pays for our debt when we place our trust in him, when we confess him as Lord and live as such. If we surrender to the same suffering servant who died on a cross, we can look back and have hope in the midst of dark, dreary hours. That's my challenge to you today, to look back and remember. Take Good Friday as an opportunity to really chew on, what did Jesus do? What has Christ done for me? Take and just dig through this passage, Isaiah 52:13 through 53:12, and just process through, who is Jesus? Who am I? How have I sinned? What have I done? How have I turned my back on God? And how has Christ provided an opportunity for me to be restored to him? It's my encouragement to you to take and reflect on the goodness of Christ, who is willing to die for you. Take some time, dig into your Bible, spend some time in prayer. A lot of churches are doing a Good Friday live stream. Let me encourage you to participate in one of those, Facebook, YouTube, wherever they're doing it. If you want to know of a church that you can connect with, message me, message Martha Swift or Dr. Kuhn. We can help connect you with the church that's doing something like that. But overall, this is my encouragement to you. Remember that though we've sinned, though we've been separated from God, Christ has provided a way for us to know him and spend eternity with him and live a life that's glorifying to him. My encouragement to you is to participate in that. Know that I'm praying for you. If you want to connect, feel free to message me on Facebook or wherever. I look forward to connecting with you, and I hope that on Good Friday you can still remember that Sunday's coming.